So here's what we're going to talk about in this session today for the next half hour or so. We're going to talk about the UEFI security response team. How did it come about? Who's participating in it? What does USRT do? How are inputs processed? And what's left to do for the USRT, and a call to action for you folks. First of all, I'd like to thank Phoenix Technologies. This presentation is actually being done on behalf of the UEFI Forum, not specifically my company. My company actually gave up its slot today to allow this presentation to happen. They've also supported me in providing me time to chair the USRT subcommittee, and I traveled to be here today so I can make this presentation. So again, I want to thank Phoenix for their support. So what's USRT and what's it all about? It is a subcommittee of the forums, the UEFI forums, board of directors. Most importantly, it's not a traditional working group. It doesn't have a traditional membership like a working group, and it doesn't hold votes in the same way that a working group does. It really is a subcommittee of the board. It was chartered to provide a point of contact for security researchers and anyone else who'd like to report a vulnerability or an issue or a problem or a perceived issue with UEFI firmware across the industry. Anybody who thinks that they might have discovered a problem that provides a security risk to the UEFI forum, to UEFI firmware, and any forum's members' software, firmware, can use this path to report any problems they perceive. Also, we wanted to be able to coordinate and enhance the responses of the members of this forum to actual and perceived vulnerabilities. Not all vulnerabilities are real. Sometimes they're just perceived by somebody. And so we want to clear that up and communicate across the industry what's going on with perceived vulnerabilities. And if there is a real risk to the public, then we want to make sure that we provide a coordinated, clear response. The question here is, how did this all get started? Well, since UEFI firmware has become widespread on PCs and laptops in particular, and growing on servers, tablets, other mobile devices, phones, etc., it's become a target for both white hat and black hat hackers. Operating systems have become much more secure. Application programs have become much more secure. So hackers in general are attacking the easiest place they can find a problem, and firmware might be one of those places. So they're actively going after our firmware in an attempt to find vulnerabilities. The white hat, or the good hackers, security researchers, people who are out investigating firmware, are doing it on behalf of, sometimes on behalf of government agencies. They've been asked to probe our firmware to see if there are vulnerabilities. In many cases, the U.S. government has hired white hat hackers to attack firmware in order to find out what platforms are more secure than others for procurement efforts. So if your platform seems vulnerable to them, they will report this back to government agencies, and government agencies may choose not to buy your hardware as a result. So it's important for you to make sure that your hardware is secure as possible. Many folks that do this probing of our firmware are not familiar with the differences in how the supply chain of firmware works, from open source through IBVs, ODMs, OEMs, etc., and all the normal processing and testing that occurs on firmware. They're very used to the environment with an OS or an application program. If it's found to have a bug in it, that you can turn that around and patch it in a few days if necessary, and get that out if it's some urgent problem, and deliver it to customers and let them know, and provide automated downloading of patches and those kinds of things. Firmware doesn't have that path yet. Hopefully we may get there, but firmware's not there yet. It frequently takes 6 to 9 months from detecting a problem to having a firmware update ready to be delivered to customers' platforms. And then the tradition has been post that update on a website someplace and forget it. And if customers ask, sure, we'll point them to our latest update. If they decide to proactively go after it, great. But most of our customers don't even know it exists. We post it out there for them and don't even tell them that there's an issue. This presents a serious problem. The security researchers in particular, and they're the folks we've been communicating with most, are technically savvy, but they just don't know anything about the supply chain for firmware. They don't know who to talk to. They found a vulnerability, but they don't know where it resides in the code. Is it in the open source code? Is it in somebody's proprietary improvements? Did somebody modify the open source code and break it? Whatever. They just don't know, and they don't know who to ask. They don't know who to contact. So the UEFI security response team is an answer to that. We discussed this at the last Plugfest in May and decided we really needed to do something about it. So the board formed this subcommittee and tasked them with getting this going. They also appointed me chair of that committee, and the group has been driving over the summer to make this work. And so the second week in September, we went live, if you want to say that. We posted our website, set our process in motion, and we've been accepting reports of vulnerabilities. As a subcommittee of the board, all promoter members, and for those of you who are not familiar with the levels of membership in the organization, there are promoter members that are essentially the board member companies that have representatives on the board. They are the original companies that formed UEFI, along with some additions along the way. Then there are contributor members, of which many of your companies are, and these are folks that have full access to the working groups and the specifications while in progress and can provide input along the way. Finally, there are adopter members, which many of you are, and there's no fee to be an adopter member. You just agree that you're going to, there's a short legal agreement, and I won't try to repeat the details here, but short legal agreement about your use of the specifications, and that you're allowed to produce products that use UEFI firmware. Right now, these companies listed here on the bottom are the companies that are actively involved in the USRT. They are primarily promoter companies, with, I believe, one exception. Other companies can be invited to join if they have specific inputs or interests in the field that the board committee feels like it's appropriate for them to be members. So we can potentially grow this. Any promoter company is a member sort of by default, but other contributor members could potentially become involved if they would choose to. They need to reach out to me if they have interest in this area. So here's what the USRT does. We've created a web page on the UEFI site soliciting inputs from the security research community and anyone else that ends up on the UEFI site. We've reached out to the researchers we know about that are active in the field. We've also let the U.S. Computer Emergency Response Team Coordinating Committee, the CERT-CC, and a few others to let them know that we're operational and ready to receive reports of vulnerabilities. There's also an organization called FIRST, which is a worldwide organization of security incident response teams. I believe it has about 270 member committees from around the world in many countries that are involved with computer emergencies. Some are companies, some are countries, etc. We're in the process of joining that organization. They have some fairly rigorous processes that are required for us to follow before we can join. But We're expecting to join them in the near future. They will help educate us on the best practices for dealing with security vulnerabilities, and will also give us additional visibility, so people who discover vulnerabilities from all over the world will know about us and be able to report to us. And most importantly, we've started the processing of actual vulnerability reports, new things coming in. So we are receiving them. The volume has been low right now, which is great. We'd love to see it zero. We'd love for there to be no vulnerabilities at all, but we expect that won't happen. But we are receiving them, and we expect to continue to receive them. And the next slide will tell us how we process them. We have a email address of security@uefi.org that anyone who would like to can send us information about a security risk, a vulnerability, an incident, a problem, any perceived issue they see with the security of UEFI firmware implementation on anyone's platform anywhere in the world. We'd love to hear about it. So that email is monitored by a rotating list of people from the USRT team, and we take responsibility for monitoring that email alias and making sure that any emails we receive are properly processed, acknowledged, and passed on as quickly as possible. Basically, by the end of the next business day is our standing attempt. So we may be actively involved on weekends, but depends on the circumstances. As part of the process, we create a Mantis ticket. This is similar for those who are involved in the working groups. Mantis is the database we use in the working groups to monitor engineering change requests and track them to conclusion. We're using that same database of ticketing tools to track all incoming incidents. Once we've received an incident and we understand enough about it to summarize it, we may interact with the original reporter and send emails back and forth to make sure that we understand what they're reporting to us if that's necessary. Once we've gathered that information, created the Mantis ticket, then we send out an email to a list of contributor members of UEFI who have specifically asked to be notified when security incidents come in. In that email, they just get a brief summary without sensitive details of what the incident is about. Then they are welcome to go to the Mantis database and review the details, and including potentially sensitive information about exploitation of the attack or whatever. So those details are maintained in the Mantis database. We will also reach out to affected companies. Many times these incidents come in and say, we found this problem with XYZ's laptop that we bought at the computer store down the street, and we attempted an attack, and we found it with this one and this other one, and not these other two. So we will frequently get a specific report that talks about the product of a particular OEM, or we're able to figure out from the information provided in the report who the OEMs affected are likely to be. We will make sure that we reach out to them, even if they did not specifically opt in for the reporting list. Anybody, any company that's involved, we will attempt to reach out through their UEFI members and report to them what's going on. In addition, everybody who is on the opt-in list will hear about this problem. The reason we do this is it turns out our experience shows that when one company has a problem, many companies have that same problem. It may not be exactly the same, but we find that programmers tend to make the same kinds of mistakes. So if one company has made the mistake, chances are other companies have made the same mistake. And so we'd like to get the word out so everybody can check their code quickly and see if they have that same vulnerability. Might not be exactly the same, might not be exploited exactly the same way, but chances are real good other people have the same problem. So we want to make sure everybody has that awareness so they can fix their problem right away. Now, we make every effort possible to protect sensitive information to prevent zero-day attacks. Zero-day attacks in this situation are situations where someone has told us about the problem, but no one has had a chance to fix it yet. And so all the machines in the field potentially that have this bug are vulnerable. And an exploit of this could get out into the wild, into the hacker universe, and could damage many, many machines out there before we get a chance to get the fixes out. So we want to make sure that if at all possible, we keep these things quiet until the fixes are available. So we've done several things along this way. We've published a PGP encryption key that for use by anybody using the security@uefi.org email address, they can send a secure email. So encrypted email so that we can't be hacked that way. Also, the members of the USRT, when we're exchanging emails among each other about security issues and vulnerabilities, we use encrypted email. The Mantis database is locked down to only contributor members, and the only people who can see the subsection that involves these are people who have, are contributor members who have reached out to me and asked me to be involved. They have to be added explicitly to the database in order to see it. So we control the membership. Also, we've enabled SSL encryption on the Mantis website where the database is accessed. So people, while data is transitioning back and forth from browser to database, it's secure. So we've done everything we can think of at this point to secure things. It's not perfect, but we've done everything we can think of that's reasonable and cost effective to secure this information. So what's left? We're in operation, as I said, we're processing security vulnerabilities, and we've received some. So the things we need to work on yet, that the USRT will be working on over the next few months, is we need to develop processes for better handling and following up on these incidents. And once we've notified everybody of the existence of the problem, how do we follow up? Who do we contact? How do we encourage our membership to be active and involved? Most will, but there's going to be some circumstances where somebody is not on top of their game, not responding to the situation correctly. We need an outreach education program to reach out to the security researchers, academics, security response teams around the world and explain to them how firmware is different than software and operating systems. That there are just inherent differences that they need to be aware of, particularly when planning releases of disclosures of information about security vulnerabilities. Many of these security researchers in particular are motivated by two things. They want credit. They want to publish at a major hacker convention saying, we found this vulnerability in the firmware. We're excited about it. We found this vulnerability and we've told the appropriate people so it can be fixed. They want to take credit. Also, honestly, they really want to embarrass companies who don't respond quickly to these kinds of issues. They feel like that these things should be handled at highest priority. That if there's a vulnerability in firmware, that this should be handled immediately, very quickly, and fixes rolled out very quickly to customers to prevent the black hat, the bad guy hackers, from damaging systems or attacking them or anywhere in the world. So they believe that if they found the problem, the bad guys will find it soon after, and they want to encourage us to move as quickly as possible. But we need to explain to them what the issues are in processing firmware updates and what exists today and what we're working on to get firmware updates in the field quickly. So we need an outreach program to educate those folks about this, because if we don't, they're just going to disclose these things at a hacker convention and demonstrate an exploit, and there will be tens of thousands of machines out there that are then vulnerable. We also need to set some expectation about our membership, UEFI members, about how quickly they're going to respond to these issues, and that they will have appropriate dedicated resources to respond quickly to these kinds of issues. We don't have anything like that. A big problem area that we're struggling with mightily, and we would be happy to hear your input from, please send email to your favorite USRT member or me as chair of that, and we would love to hear your input. But the issue is, how do we coordinate the rollout of fixes? When multiple companies are involved, multiple OEMs are involved, have the same issue across their platforms, we really would like for all of the fixes to go out at about the same time. Because if somebody releases a fix, the bad guys watch for these releases, immediately tear open the fix, look to see what's being fixed, and immediately attack it. So most everybody out there in the field won't have the fix yet. And in a case particular where one OEM is way ahead of the others, all of the other customers' platforms are vulnerable to attack. So we really would like to coordinate things so that all of the fixes go out about the same time, so all the customers at least have the same opportunity to patch their systems and get them up to current and not be vulnerable. The problem is, how do we tell one OEM, oh, you've got the fix, well, he doesn't have it yet and it's going to take him another 2 or 3 months. You can't ship yours because it'll expose all of his. And of course, the original OEM says, all of my customers are vulnerable right now. I want to ship this. And we as an organization, we don't want to be in the position of telling them, no, you can't ship yours, when we can't do that anyway. Realistically, it's just not going to happen. So how do we somehow come to some cooperative agreement about coordinating fixes and rollouts? We don't know how to solve that problem. It's a tough one, but it would really be good for the industry if we could figure out a way to do this. Just making it all faster would be better. And finally, the industry as a whole, with the UEFI organization and the USRT specifically, and other subcommittees like, or other working groups like the security sub-team, USST, need to work with across the industry to speed up the process of rolling out updates and fixes and generate the widespread adoption of firmware updates. Right now, the vast majority of firmware updates go out on an OEM's website and sit there, and 99% of the customers don't even know it's there and will never download and update their systems. Big government agencies, big enterprise customers may, but the typical consumer at home, they won't ever update their system. So we need a way to figure out push mechanisms to encourage people to update their firmware in the field. And we need to be better with the enterprise and government customers as well, but we need to work on it for consumers. So finally, the call to action. Contributor members of UEFI that haven't done so should join the opt-in list. All you need to do if you want to find out about security vulnerabilities as soon as they arrive to us is send an email to the admin group, admin@uefi.org, saying you want to join the opt-in list. As long as your company is a contributor member, and the reason we do that is contributor members are covered by non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and are required to keep this information confidential within their companies. Adopter members are not covered by those same agreements. So we will not be providing this information, particularly about vulnerabilities, attacks, exploits, those kinds of things, to adopter members. So for those who are adopter members and would really like to hear about this stuff, encourage your company to upgrade your membership to contributor member, and you can have free access to this. Any contributor members that haven't signed up yet, we encourage you to do so. All UEFI member companies need to develop policies and procedures for receiving reports of vulnerabilities and processing and handling them efficiently and quickly, getting back to us with the results, So we find out who's vulnerable, who's not, what we're doing about it, how can we coordinate, how can we help. If there's going to be a delay in response time, we can help you negotiate with the security researchers to delay their disclosure of the problem. We have the clout with them that we can start asking nicely and then pushing harder on them to not release this information too quickly if there's going to be a delay. And then everyone, all of the companies out there, all UEFI members, need to participate in the discussion about how do we more rapidly develop, deliver, coordinate, and encourage the uptake in customer sites of fixes like this. These are very difficult problems that need to be solved in the industry. So it's only going to be all of us working together that will allow us to solve these problems. Thank you very much.